Seattle, I will be there this Friday. I will be at the Hereafter Crocodile. I don't understand the difference between the crocodile and the hereafter, but I will be there nevertheless, and you can get your tickets at jfcomedytour.com. That is day after tomorrow, Friday. I love Seattle. I'm very excited to be back out there. Let's talk in this fine episode about crises of faith. In the Catholic ghetto, we have a term called a dark night of the soul, because we are drama queens. Yeah, I mean, it's very dramatic, and we have pictures of saints. They're all gaunt from all the fasting that they've done, and they're looking up towards God, and they're all upset. And it's we have a very dramatic term, dark night of the soul. That's when you feel like God is absent in your life. You don't feel emotionally connected to him, and your faith is kind of on the skids. So let's talk about that. As someone whose entire life of faith has been one long dark night of the soul, I think I can help you guys. I mean, not that anyone wants to take spiritual advice from me. I'm banned from at least one major medical establishment for threats of violence. Like, it's not like I am, crushing it in the spiritual department. But I will say I'm actually pretty at peace with my faith life, even as someone who is very likely on the Asperger's spectrum, severe ADHD, and is raised lifelong atheist. I am feeling pretty good about my faith life, and I am here to help you all relax. So, and even if you're an atheist, even if you're kind of agnostic, to my Wiccan listeners, to my Hindu listeners, I mean, really, this is for everyone. Muslims, this is for all of you. I will help you feel better about your relationship with God. And it might even be you're like, well, at least I'm not in as bad shape as Jen. That could be worse. So we will talk about that as usual on this podcast. We always get to the main topic in the second half of the show. In the first half of the show, we are going to hit a bunch of topics, including I know where Kate Middleton is. I know where she's been. Yeah, it's actually pretty exciting. I mean, you would think, This is how you end up with a podcast that is this popular. Jen, how do you get your 9 views on YouTube each week? Well, it's because you have the insider knowledge that I have. So I'm very excited to tell you guys what has been up with Kate Middleton. And I feel certain that I'm right. It's like that one Apple Podcast reviewer said, what did she say? Maybe in error, never in doubt. That really is such a great tagline for this show. Except when I read that, I was like, yeah, I know that's what you guys think, but I mean, I'm just never in error. Like, I'm always right. And so yeah, I just have great news that I literally know what I'm positive that I am right about what's going on with Kate Middleton. So now you guys can know. Let's see what else. I don't know what else I will get to, so I just don't want to make any promises here, but we'll definitely, I'll tell you what's been going on with Kate. I call her KK. We're just, we know each other pretty well. Welcome to the Jen Fulwiler Show, coming to you from Austin, Texas. I am your host, Jen. I'm a best-selling author, stand-up comic, and mom of 6. This is the podcast where you learn the art of the village hustle. That's being a hot girl boss, or hot boy boss who knows that love and family and community are the foundation for all real success. Our lovely producer is Caitlin White, and maybe you can work with her directly. She told me before the show that she has had such a strong response to her services now that she does freelance for others. She's opening a freelance business, that she said, I'm cutting off, I'm probably not accepting more new clients. And I said, no, you need to start a wait list so that you can continue to have people contact you and just keep a long pipeline. Listen, Caitlin is going to build an empire here. She'll have 10 employees before I do. She will have her 10 staff members running her social media management and video editing empire. So if you would like to get on her wait list or beg her to let you work with her, offer to pay her double, catgstudios.com. That is cat with a K, catgstudios.com. Oh, and I forgot to tell you, the link is in the show notes to my Seattle show tickets. That, again, day after tomorrow, I am in Seattle. And of course, you can always get premium content on Patreon. That is also in the show notes. Thank you very much for your Apple Podcast reviews. I'm going to jump right into the show. I'm not going to read as many this time, but I will tell you, man, when I got the summary of reviews from this week, I was in a state. There's a concept in therapy called catastrophizing, where you do kind of a little brainstorming session about everything that's wrong with your life and how it's only going to get worse. And I was doing that. I was catastrophizing when the summary of your reviews came in, and it is the only thing that stood between me and burning down many things in my life that I should not have been burning down. So you guys are doing the Lord's work with your Apple Podcast reviews. Thank you very much. I very much appreciate them. Okay, let's just jump. Let's jump right into the subject. You've probably heard about all of this Kate Middleton controversy. Where is she? Where's she been? Things like that. A video came out a few days ago of her at some kind of farm or something. Caitlin, go ahead and play the video. JF on YouTube.com. You can see this. You've probably seen it, though. I mean, look, I'm really not a conspiracy theorist, but Caitlin, does that look like her?
No, not even.
I mean, and I'm pretty bad with faces. I have the face blindness thing. It's some kind of genetic thing. But I mean, even as someone who is pretty face blind, I'm like, that's not her. And I don't think it's William. That's supposed to be William, the dude in the hat. For those of you who are listening on audio, which is the vast majority of you, and haven't seen this video, how do you describe it? It's just imagine that it's Kate Middleton, but not. Imagine that it's Kate Middleton's cousin. It's not even that. I mean, I'm not even sure this person looks like her cousin. It's pretty different. So Kate Middleton hasn't been seen in public since December. Did you know it's been that long? It was December.
I didn't realize it was December.
Yeah, December was the last time that she was seen in public. And now we have this invasion of the body snatchers thing going on. Like, okay, that's not her. Nice try. Also, that's the video. It's like a shaky cell phone video. I don't believe that if Kate and William show up to your little mom and pop farm, that one person had a blurry video of it, and that's it. And all these Brits are they're like, well, you don't understand. It's actually really common where they live to see Prince and Kate, and everyone's really chill about it. That's a lie. Not now. Not with this whole international controversy about where she is. I mean, no, I don't believe that for 1 minute, and all of their little European condescension to us Americans is not going to get me to change my mind. And before I continue, let me say, I do want to state for the record, I don't care about the British royals generally. There's a meme that some people that some people share that's like something like, you know, we fought an entire war so that we don't have to follow what's going on with this family. So, and I'm always like, I like a good meritocracy. I like people who have earned power. And back in the day, 600 years ago and before, man, you earned your power. If you were a British royal, everyone was trying to kill you, including your siblings and your children. It was like, is an arrow going to come flying through the air? Will someone poison me? I mean, it made Game of Thrones look like Peppa the Pig. It made Game of Thrones look like Bluey, what actually used to happen with the British aristocracy. So this whole, like, you know, they just kind of inherited their wealth and now they go to parties and stuff. I don't know. I want to establish, if you're thinking, I don't care about the royal family, I don't either, but I am interested in people playing social games that cause massive international controversies. That's just fun. Yeah. So that's why I think we should be following it, because it is kind of crazy that she hasn't really been seen in public since December. And now they're trying to say that this is a Bigfoot sighting, basically. There are better quality videos of Bigfoot. This is literally the Kate Middleton, like, Sasquatch, you know, going out. I mean, honestly, if they had Bigfoot himself walking around this farm, that might look more like Kate Middleton than the person in this video did. I mean, and they're trying to say that no one else had a camera, because the Brits are just so chill. They're not like you Americans. The Brits are that chill. That's why there's one person videoing it. Right. Okay. So obviously that wasn't her. She's in hiding. So so I do have big news that I know where Kate Middleton has been for the past 3.5 months. She is in her introvert era. I think that's what happened. I think that she hit 13 years with this family and is like, you people have exhausted my introvert batteries. She is curled up on a couch with her Snuggly, one of those wearable blankets that it's a whole body blanket that you just wear. She is in slippers. She is in a Snuggly. She has her hair in a messy bun. Put up the picture of see, this is jfonyoutube.com. Here's an actual picture of Kate Middleton. You want to see Kate Middleton? Go to my YouTube channel. None of you guys ever have. And now you will. jfonyoutube.com. Subscribe to the channel. I actually have a picture of Kate Middleton right here. This is Kate Middleton. This is it. It looks more like her than the woman in the video, frankly. Yeah. Kate Middleton is in her Snuggly on her couch with a cat and some slippers and a bottle of cheap Chardonnay. And she's just giving the middle finger to the royal family. She's like, I cannot go to one more party. I cannot smile at one more stranger, kiss one more baby. You guys have sucked all of the extroversion out of me. And I'm a recluse now. I can't do it anymore. I am learning what it means to be an introvert. My new love language is being left alone in silent rooms. And she's just done with it. That would be me. I mean, if I had, God forbid, married into a royal family, I would be like, okay, I can do this on the condition that I don't ever have to do anything I don't want to do. I'm not, and that would include like 98% of the parties. Not going to wear heels all the time, but I do want some really expensive heels, but just not all the time. I'm not going to wear what, someone tells me to wear. Well, you know what? It would be Meghan Markle. I mean, frankly, as much I don't love what she and Harry are about, but like, I kind of appreciate the nah, I'm not going to do, really any of this. Like, it's so American, it's pretty funny. But no, okay, here's what I really think is going on. I do think that maybe Kate is in her introvert era. What I actually think is going on, and I'm so sure that I'm right about this, I think she had a facelift, and I think it maybe didn't go well, like it didn't, take the right way or whatever. And I think maybe she had to have it redone or something, because I think maybe the results were too dramatic, too obvious. And there's been a long recovery from that. That would explain everything. Because think about it. If it really were abdominal issues, she could do a chest up video sitting down. The whole thing is we have not really seen her face. She has not shown her face. I think she had a facelift that got a little crazy. And she is in early 40s. That is an age that celebrities often, very, very commonly, when celebrities start that sort of thing. And that is what I think happened. And well, in that case, Caitlyn, maybe it is her in the video.
Yeah.
And she just has a whole new face, like that Nicolas Cage movie, Face Off. It's a whole different face. So that is my theory, is that she had a facelift that was too dramatic, or it didn't go well, and they're kind of piecing her face back together Frankenstein style and just trying to make this work. And that would explain really everything. The number 2 theory is that she is doing some kind of power move because her husband, it's pretty well known that Prince William allegedly had an affair with some Rose woman. Did you hear about this, Caitlyn?
No.
Okay, so Rose and Kate were good friends. Rose's husband, Kate and her husband, the 4 of them used to all hang out. And then it is somewhat accepted that he definitely had something with Rose. So some people are saying that Kate Middleton is playing a power game of saying that that she won't go out in public until he like cuts things off with Rose or something. That's an interesting theory. I love the drama of it, and that would be fun if she were doing a power move like that. Like, I love the idea behind it, but I just think, I mean, he's his father's son. Even if he tells Rose that he's not going to do anything, it's like, that's not really going to stop him. I don't know. That theory is interesting, but I don't think it holds water. I think the theory that makes everything come together is that it was facial plastic surgery that went awry, and so maybe that was her in the video, actually. So that'll be fun when it comes out that I'm right. That'll be fun for everyone to be like, maybe Jen is, never in error, never in doubt. Maybe,
always right, never in doubt.
Yeah. Jen's just always right. I'm telling you, when we finally see her face is going to look a little different. I want to put money on it. We need to start a Jen Fulwiler show betting pool where we put, is her face going to look a little fresher, little nip and a tuck? Is it fewer wrinkles, little bit of no more sagging skin? I think that's when we see her again. Those plastic surgeons are working overtime to make it look a little more natural than maybe it did at first. And that would also explain the Photoshop picture. Do you think people heard about that? That they released a picture with Kate and the kids, and it was just the worst Photoshop job.
I could have done better.
I know. It was, yeah. So that would also explain, I do that with my family Christmas cards. I Photoshop people's heads on. Actually, you know what's interesting? I Photoshop my family Christmas cards all the time, and they are better done than that. There are not the obvious Photoshop mistakes that that they made. So yeah, so I think it's something with her face. So we'll just watch.
Oh yeah.
We'll just watch and see if Kate's face looks a little different when we finally see her again. And that actually brings me to something that I've thought about a lot, is kind of the principles behind having plastic surgery, because there's no right or wrong answer. But I think we would all agree, if you do plastic surgery to the point that you look like the main character from the 80s cartoon Thundercats, that's not, there's almost something immoral about that, because God didn't create you to be a Thundercat. And so if you have this weird nose and massive pillow lips and all that, and it's like, I mean, that there's almost a moral issue there of disfiguration if you take it that far. And then on the other hand, people who are like, I would never do Botox, or even to another extreme, like I would never wear makeup because that's not how God made me or whatever. That is also, that's on the whole other side of the spectrum. So, as a woman who is vain, I've really thought a lot about, where is my line? It's mostly financial, if we're being honest. Man, let me tell you, when the comedy millions come in, I just want to look like me, but I don't worry, I won't like show up on this podcast like a Thundercat. I'm not going to pull a Kate Middleton and disappear for 3 months. I mean, I will show up with my Frankenstein scars, just all over my face, like sutures. I'm like bleeding from my eye socket. Like, hey guys, just trust the process. Okay, trust the process. I have thought a lot about it, and Instagram is like, it knows my thoughts because it keeps suggesting to me these plastic surgery before and afters, and I'm like, that looks amazing. She just looks refreshed. She just looks like she got a good night's sleep. So I'm like, I'm doing that. And then I Google it, and it's like $90,000. So yeah, I mean, look, I don't mean to wade into controversial territory here. I do not, but I just have to say, there are insurance plans that cover sex change operations for people who, like I identify as, a man or whatever. So let's, add one on, like and the insurance will cover that. I identify as a hot woman. So like, why isn't my insurance covering a $90,000, little nip and tuck? That's what I want to know. I just feel like I need to be fully in line with my identity. And if you guys think I'm kidding, there's probably someone out there who's like, you shouldn't, people really struggle. Like, hey, I really struggle. I'm not making fun of anyone. I'm dead serious. Listen, okay. So I've thought a lot about, where do you draw the line with, plastic surgery, things like that? And I think it is all about using all of the modern tools that God has given us. Botox directly from God, filler from God, good facial plastic surgeons. Ask Kate Middleton, from God. Might take 3 months to get it right, but we're working through the process. I think the goal is to feel like you are your fullest, truest self, given everything, given your personality, given your kibby body type, given your lifestyle, given your age, factoring all that in and saying that I'm just the fullest, truest version of myself. So, for example, I know a woman who, she was saying she let her hair go gray. She's in her early 50s, hot, beautiful woman, very hot. She let her hair go gray. She does not wear a lot of makeup, maybe occasionally some lip gloss, a little bit of mascara. And she said, Jen, I'm not into it. I don't care. Like, I don't care about having gray hair. I don't care about, she said, I gained probably 15 pounds in the past decade. I don't care. I like to bake. I like to hang out with my kids now that they're getting older. And she's outdoorsy. She likes, the stuff like the rocks and all that, the weather, all that stuff that happens outside of your house that I've heard so much about. She likes all that. And so for her, that is how she is hot. Because look, I've said it before and I'll say it again. What makes a person hot is being fully, unapologetically themselves, the fullest version of themselves, which takes everything into account. So for example, if you're a woman and you're very tall, you're 6'2", and you're athletic and you played college basketball and you just have that, you want to be active and you're on a women's soccer team and all that you just have a different total package. You probably will have more wrinkles on your face, for example, than someone like me, who just aspires to be a vampire. I was goth when I was in high school, and frankly, I'm not sure I'm not goth. No, I'm not sure that I ever really fully grew out of that. I have no use for the sun movement outdoors, and that's who I am. And that's what being quote unquote hot is about, having a force of presence. It's about having a force of presence that you just feel fully alive. I've said this quote before. It's attributed to like everyone and their dog, but I think it's Saint Irenaeus. I'm going to see if I can find a video for you guys that hopefully, come on. Oh, I can't find it. Okay. But the glory of God is man fully alive. The glory of God is man fully alive. And that is when you're hot, when you seem, quote unquote hot to different people, to whoever encounters you, usually it is because you seem fully alive. Oh, I'm so frustrated. Okay, I can't find the video of this woman who was talking about this on TikTok. Okay, whatever. It's because you seem fully alive. And if you are denying a fundamental part of who you are in your personality, in terms of what you like to do for fun, in terms of your body type, in terms of your personality or anything, then you're not fully alive. You're not. And so just like, the woman who really enjoys being outdoorsy and sporty, and she loves taking her kids out to games, and they're out, maybe she lives in Buffalo and goes out to the football games and the massive snowstorms like we had in the football season this past year. And she's like, all right, I'm here for it. And my lips are frostbitten and I have like a permanent scar going down the side of my face for the frostbite. And I only had one finger fall off, and it was, fine, because I felt like the Bills had a pretty strong season. That is an awesome woman who is hot and everyone wants to be around, even if, she's missing a finger and has like the frostbite scar. And it's like, but she is so vibrant and she knows who she is and she's putting that force out there. And the video I was trying to find on TikTok is this woman who's really outdoorsy. She said, there's this "how old do I look" thing on TikTok. And she was saying, I think people keep guessing wrong, or people would probably guess wrong. And people in the comments said, you look early 50s. I probably would have guessed, just scrolling, not thinking, late 40s, early 50s. Well, it turns out she's 38. And she said in there, she said, I love the outdoors. My husband and I go hiking all the time. But she was joking about it. And she had this great force of personality that's like, yeah, you know what? She looks older than she is. I mean, if you surveyed people, yeah, they probably would think that she's 5 to 10 years older than she actually is. But if you surveyed, like, is she attractive? And I don't mean men trying to hook up with women, but just asking anyone of any gender, just, is this an attractive person? I think everyone would say yes. Yeah, she's so funny and she knows who she is. And she's like, I want to be around her. I want to hear the funny jokes she makes. I want to not go hiking with her, but hear about her hiking. And it seems like she and her husband have a great relationship. And I just thought, yeah, that's what being attractive is. It's about knowing who you are and owning it. So just like the outdoorsy woman who bemoans and rejects the extra wrinkles on her face from climbing mountains or rocks or whatever it is you people do, for someone like me, it would be inauthentic not to be getting in on the Botox and a little bit of fillers, because that I like aesthetic things when it comes to appearance. Just like many women enjoy keeping their house very tidy. It is something that is life-giving to them. You walk into the house and the decorative throw pillows are all aligned. There is tasteful art on the wall. There is no excrement from any mammal anywhere in the house. There are no weird smells. They like keeping their house nicely. That's not me, but I am that way with my appearance. I like having my appearance in a certain orderly way, and it is who I am. Now, is there a little bit of unresolved trauma there? Yes, probably. I've said this before. This is why you guys should take makeup tips from me, because I was bullied horrifically when I was considered ugly. When oh God, Littleton, Colorado, not my favorite place to go to school. I was terrible bullying. And then I changed my appearance to be more in line with like what society would consider appropriate or good looking. Not only did all the bullying stop, but suddenly I had friends, I had social status, I had popularity. So you want to take beauty tips from someone who fundamentally, on a cave woman level, associates looking good with safety. With like, I was bullied to the point that I really did fear for my life on a few occasions, and that stopped when I became better looking. So man, no one is more driven to like look okay than I am. So yeah, is there a little trauma mixed in there? Probably. But I am my mother's daughter. I've shown you guys pictures of my mom just smoking hot at 78 years old. You'd never believe, you'd think she's like 60 if you saw her. And she has not had plastic surgery or anything, but she takes care of her appearance. And so I do think that would be in there within me, even without the the unresolved trauma. And frankly, as an aside, tangent alert.
Uh-oh.
But it's an analogy alert.
All right.
We're drawing out the lesson through analogy. This isn't a tangent. So just like some women like to keep their houses tidy. In fact, I just had this conversation with a friend of mine who has an immaculate, perfectly clean house, she was like, oh yeah, this is trauma. She said, I grew up in a really chaotic house where I did not feel like I had control of my life or surroundings. And she said, yeah, the fact that my junk drawer is perfectly organized with like a place for the paper clips, and here are the 2 pencils that are perfectly sharpened and have clean erasers. And she's like, yeah, this is how I work out my trauma. So I think, for anyone who has anything that kind of soothes them and makes them feel calm and it's something that they're into, I think that's normal. That yeah, you might be working out a little bit of trauma there, but that's okay. So bottom line on plastic surgery stuff, you want, not just plastic surgery, but Botox, fillers, all that sort of thing. Here is where I have come to on this that has given me a fair amount of peace. You want to make sure that your motivation, if you're going to get Botox, get your lips a little plumped, which by the way, I have not done. I just learned to line outside the lips. You would think with old pictures of me that I had my lips done, but I didn't. I just line outside now. The only thing I have had done is Botox and a little bit of filler around the jaw, and that is it. I haven't had anything else done. But I'm not necessarily done. I'm not saying I won't ever have anything else done. And so I've thought a lot about when the comedy millions come in and I can afford anything, how far would I take it? And I think this is an area, anything cosmetic. This is even true with makeup, even if you're not going to go have needles put in your face. I think the key is to make sure that you feel okay without it, that you feel worthy of love, that you feel beautiful, that you feel like you're amazing, and that you have everything you need without this. Because I think it's when women get into the place of maybe a deep fear that their husband is going to start looking at other women, or they won't be loved, or they won't be accepted. That's when you can start looking real crazy real quick and just overdo all of this stuff and spend too much money on it. So I think first of all, make sure that you're okay without it. It's only when you have peace with what you look like naturally that you should do any of this. And oddly enough, I actually do. I feel like I would hate to not have Botox, but I really would. I would be okay. I do not feel like my value as a person, as a woman, or anything is dependent on Botox. 99% for the most part. And I think the second thing is really shining with, let's see. Oh, how do I say this? Shining the total package of who you are physically, mentally, and experience wise. Here's what I mean by this. Let's say that the best cosmetic surgeon in the universe is like, Jen, I'm a big fan of your podcast. Man, the Jen Fulwiler show. I'm one of the 4 YouTube viewers. I love it. I love it so much. And so I can give you a whole plastic surgery thing that you will look like you, but 22 years old. People will literally think you are 22 years old, and I'll do it for free. I would actually turn that down because that doesn't encompass who I am. The reality, see, this is why I'm never wrong about anything, because I'm not 22 years old. I got a couple decades on a 22-year-old. And so I would feel like I am lying to people if I could wave a magic wand and look multiple decades younger than I am. I would feel like I'm lying. And frankly, I would feel like I'm selling myself short. You know, you young girls in your 20s and in your teens, I mean, you're beautiful. You've got that youthful, like, it's gorgeous. Like, love that era of life. But frankly, you just get like more respect when you look like you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, like, as you should. You have lived that life, and it's great to look like it so that you get the respect that is due to you. I mean, like, I would like imagine if, again, I wave a magic wand, suddenly I look like me, but like a 22-year-old version of me. And like some guy at Arby's is like, yo, baby, what's up? Yo, chick. I mean, it's like, no, I don't want to be treated that way. And people don't do that to me now that it's clear that like you get a little more respect as life goes on. And so for that reason, I think if you're thinking about Botox, filler, things like that, and you have to tell your people this because they do not always share your vision, you have to tell them like, I want to look like me, and I want to look like I'm roughly in the age range I actually am. Don't mind if we take off a couple years, but like I don't want to look 10 years younger than I am. Like I want to look like me in this phase of life, and just the best version of me. And again, if you like, if you're a baker and you're kind of voluptuous, like you've maybe your doctor says you could lose 25, 30 pounds, and you're like, I'm soft, I'm curvy, and I bake cookies, and I love to eat, and that's how I share with people. Yeah, don't listen to your doctor, seriously. Like, well, I mean, unless there's some like grave reason. If he's like, you're about to lose your foot to diabetes, okay, that's different. But if you're feeling great, like this is who I am, and this is how I share love with people, and my health is good, and I'm very happy with how I look, own it. And if you have wrinkles because you're an outdoorsy person and you're going to look a few more years older than you are, that's hot, that's sexy, own it. And when you go to the esthetician and they're like, oh, we can do the sandblaster on your face and take away all those wrinkles, I think you should say, no, don't do that, because I want to look like I've spent a lot of days at the lake. I want to look like I climbed that mountain that I climbed. Like I want my appearance to reflect the fact that I have spent a lot of time loving God's green earth in the sun. So no, don't take away those wrinkles. And if you're me, you're like, take away them all, because I want it to be clear that I've spent a lot of time in dark rooms. I wrote 3 books. I write a lot of comedy. I do this podcast. I try not to see the sun ever. And I would like to have a vampiric appearance that reflects that. So for me, totally different ball game than for someone who has, a completely different lifestyle and life setup. So that is my advice to you. If you've ever thought about Botox, filler, or even what you do with your makeup, it should be about knowing who you are first, accepting who you are with your default no makeup, no filler, no Botox, no surgery appearance, and realizing you are hot, you are worthy of love. Everyone would, should and will think you're amazing without any of that. And then judiciously using those things to help people understand who you really are. That's a good summary. Help through your appearance, help people understand who you really are. So if it's like, I in my heart, I'm a hot vampire, versus I in my heart, I'm an outdoorsy woman. Like, just know who you are, and then use that kind of stuff to enhance that. Okay, just want to remind you, I am going to Seattle. Speaking of which, I love Seattle because that's my kind of weather in Seattle. It is cold. It is overcast. It rains a lot. It's very Irish. It's Irish type of weather. And that is why I am very excited to be out there. I'm getting there a little bit early on Thursday. It's going to be a lot of fun. jfcomedytour.com is where you get your tickets to my Seattle show. Let me see. I don't think I do have time to go into a couple other things. Well, next week's episode will be amazing because there was quite a bit of stuff that I had on the list, and I'll get to later. Oh, by the way, episode 32 of the Village Hustle Patreon just came out, and I was talking about how my husband talked me into sailing this past weekend because he is very into sailing. And boy, if that's not an analogy for building a village hustle life. Because think about this, it's like when you're sailing, it does require action. You have to be hoisting the sail and doing the jib and all that. It requires action and skill and all sorts of stuff from you. But at the end of the day, you don't control the wind. You don't control the wind. And so you have to have this posture of humility that I am at the mercy of the wind, and that is beyond my control. But that doesn't mean that I can sit around and do nothing. I have to be working with the wind. And the wind here is an analogy for just momentum in whatever whatever goals you're trying to set, God's will, that kind of thing. So it was very helpful to me to have that realization. I shared it on the Village Hustle Patreon. You can get that and or the other level, which is the after party that we do after every show. We keep the cameras rolling and we do a little after party. All of that is available in the show notes or at patreon.com/This Is Jen. Let's talk about dark nights of the soul, crises of faith. A lot of people, they get very upset if they start to feel distant from God. And I feel like I can help you guys because I've never had a super emotional spiritual life. So let's review. I was a lifelong atheist. So even as a kid, I did not wonder if God existed. I wasn't like, maybe. I was like, no, God definitely does not exist. Nothing. I mean, I was an atheist materialist. Like there is nothing more than meets the eye from way back. The first time I remember thinking about faith, I was 5 years old. And one of my little friends was like, have you accepted him as your Lord and Savior? And I said, who? I literally had no idea what she was talking about. And this was West Virginia. So that was very scandalous that I would say who to that question. We didn't own a Bible. My mom argues with me about this. She's like, we did own a Bible. Okay. It was an heirloom that actually came over on a covered wagon. My mom really cares what people think about us. So she's like, you can't say we didn't own a Bible. I'm like, okay, did you ever buy one? Like, no, but so we had this dusty Bible that was printed in like 1840 that literally came across on a covered wagon that was this massive heirloom that occasionally my dad would take out of the heirlooms box to read through it with me so that I could never be brainwashed by Christians. It's literally why he did it. He's like, you got to see what craziness is in this book. And I was like, oh, that is crazy. And then we would put it away. So we did not own a Bible. That is not an inaccurate thing for me to say. My mom listens to this podcast. I had a very wonderful upbringing. I'm talking about like we didn't own a Bible. I was bullied. My mom's good. I need to make sure that she's very busy when this episode comes out. So I was like, did not even question if God might exist. And, and keep in mind, my mother is, I've said this before, but let's review new listeners, Phi Beta Kappa math major. That's an honor society. She calculated kill ratios for the Naval Weapons Research Laboratory. She was an actual mathematician. And then she went on to do corporate finance type stuff. And then my dad, Green Beret engineer, grandfather engineer. So I am genetically designed to really struggle being friends with people who are invisible. So I have struggled with having a relationship with Jesus because I just didn't, when people would be like, Jesus is talking to my heart, I'd be like, what, really? Like, what is it? Like, he's what? Like, he's doing what? And that was after I was Catholic. I mean, like, I've just never, I don't know, some of these people who really are like, the Lord told me this and the Lord told me that. I think some of them are mystics. I think some of them really do have a mystical connection with God. And I think some of them, it's like their sock puppet is telling them, it's like, yes, you should do this. Like, I've definitely talked to some people. I think it's more the sock puppet thing. Cause when I speak in Catholic circles, I'll like, tell my conversion story or whatever. And people come up to me with messages from God, like pretty regularly, like saying the craziest stuff that usually does not turn out to be true. So I've just never been one of those people who like has these long emotional conversations with God. And so it was very interesting to me when I discovered that you can have a faith that is based intellectually. You believe it is true based on a preponderance of data, based on logic, based on philosophy, and that is sort of the foundation. And frankly, historically, I mean, the way, going back to like the time of Jesus, if you look at real historical Christianity, that was considered kind of the way you do it. This idea that I have a lot of emotions about Jesus and therefore now I'm all right with God and everything's good. That would nobody ever thought that was the way. In fact, one of the reasons that during and this is in the old church, like, shortly after the time of Christ. So we're talking 400 AD, when Christians were still being persecuted. When people would go through the rite of Christian initiation, which was a weeks-long process, one of the things you go through is a scrutiny, and there are a lot of reasons that they would do that. But in some cases, they were looking for spies. They were seeing if anyone recognized, spies who were like there to kill all the Christians. And then one of the reasons that the tradition started to choose the confirmation name of a saint is that you would use that name instead of your real name, so you wouldn't all be murdered. It was kind of like Alcoholics Anonymous, but with, if it was like your favorite rock star, like you use their name. I'm not saying this is the only reason they did confirmation named saints, but for example, my confirmation saint is Saint Monica. So if I were in like 220 AD going through the rite of Christian initiation, I would be showing up there as Monica. And a lot of people in those circles might not even know my real name. I would be going through it as Monica. So it was a long process to become Christian. It was not like, oh, I just had a really good feeling about this, because if you and everyone are being tortured to death for this faith, you might start to think like, but did I really feel that? Or is there any other reason that maybe I should believe this? So historically, and obviously I'm speaking from a Christian perspective, but historically, there absolutely was this understanding that this is not rooted in emotion, because for the first few hundred years of the church, you and your kids and your brothers and sisters and anyone else might be literally fed to wild beasts or killed in various and sundry other ways. And so emotion wasn't going to be enough to cut it. You had to know the hows and whys. Like, why would I believe this guy rose from the dead? Like, why would I believe there's a God? Like, why? Because, if someone comes at me with a sword, watch how fast I'll backtrack on that if that was just emotion, I mean, like when I was a kid, I don't know, like I thought strawberry shortcake was real. But if someone had come at me with a sword, I would have been like, she's not real. No, absolutely not. Nope.
Definitely no.
Yeah, backing out of that one. So, just make sure. Western culture, American culture, it's very influenced by modern Protestant philosophy, and it's not really the historical way of doing things. And so I think one of the ways it kind of gets in our heads is it is pretty emotion based. And so you start to feel like you are doing something wrong if you don't have a lot of emotions surrounding God and your faith and stuff like that. And I've heard a lot of people get very upset when they are going through what we call a dark night of the soul. When you feel that God is not with you, God is not answering prayers, you don't feel close to God. And I think the best advice I could possibly give you is stop worrying about it. This is a normal part of life. And if you want real intimacy with God, I think, blame God a little bit. And I'm serious, because if you're really close to God and you see him as a father and you see him as a protector, I think you have a little honesty in your prayer life, like, look, hey, you know what? Some of this is on your end, okay, Lord, because you're invisible. So, I mean, and even if, like the Eucharist, like as Catholics, we believe that's the real presence of God, but still, it's not like he's sitting in an armchair, talking to you, looking at silly memes with you. I mean, it is a little bit of a different thing to like foster that kind of relationship with someone who's not like talking to you or sending you emojis or texts or, funny Instagram clips or whatever. I think that's actually a healthy thing to be like, hey, Lord, some of this is on your end, like, because I'm trying here. Because what it does is it fosters intimacy and it fosters authenticity. Whereas people do a lot of preening in their prayer life, a lot of preening, a lot of performative, Lord, I'm trying to love you so much. But it's like, sometimes when I've heard people talk like that, it's like, maybe you should just give yourself a break and be like, okay, look, we live in a society that is completely structured against having any kind of faith. And this is a little bit difficult for me, and I'm doing my best. And I think that kind of posture actually sends you into a more intimate connection, a deeper connection. That's how you would talk to your spouse. I mean, if your marriage was on the rocks, I mean, yeah, I think you wouldn't just say a bunch of fake things and say the right things to your spouse. If you want this relationship to go deeper, you'd get really raw. You'd get really honest, You'd be like, why are you invisible? Like, okay, well, you wouldn't say that to like your spouse. But, and I think sometimes you guys are worried also that like, it's not true. Like, what if it's not true? I think that's what you guys are really worried about. I think that's the big reason that people flip out about a dark night of the soul. And I don't know, just read the early Christians, read some of the older philosophers. I mean, I don't, well, listen, we have established on this podcast that I'm right about everything. And look, I didn't want to be Catholic. I didn't want to believe in God. I certainly didn't want to be a Christian. I hated Christians. Like, I didn't want to end up in this religion, but I was just following what is true. So take it from your friend who is a lifelong atheist, who did not feel any need for spirituality, did not feel anything lacking, didn't care. I just researched my way into it. It's just logical. It just makes sense. And it's just true. So take that off the table. If you worry about, if your dark night of the soul is like, what if God is not actually there? That kind of fear can actually block you from recovering that feeling of intimacy and that feeling of peace about your faith. That fear always blocks love. That's even in the Bible somewhere. I'm Catholic, so it's on page like 386. Fear's the opposite of love, or say, well, it's there. And so first of all, let go of the fear. And then second of all, this probably only applies to some of you, but I do think that some of us can get a little bit dramatic about our faith lives as a method of working through unresolved trauma. I almost didn't say this because it's a little controversial and it won't apply to most people, but there is a concept called limerence. You should look it up. There are a lot of YouTube videos about it, TikTok, things like that, limerence. And this somehow on social media, I stumbled across this post, and it's limerence it tends to refer to male-female relationships that are very obsessive. If you obsessively like think someone has a crush on you, like frankly, stalkers can be a little limerent. Like this person's my one and only, and like, they're my boyfriend, and I'm upset because they don't know they're my boyfriend, and it's like very upsetting. That typically is limerence. And what I thought was interesting about it was one of the things that is the psychologist was saying characterizes limerence is that there are all these in the relationship, whether it's imaginary or someone you're actually in a relationship with, there are very high highs, and then there are devastating lows. And some of you may have even been in relationships like this, where one day it's like, oh, we're on the mountaintop. I've never experienced love like this. It's incredible. And then a week later, something happens and it's like, this is the darkest hole I've ever been in. It's so terrible. So that's limerence. And the reason I watched the video, and then you know how these social media algorithms are now, it's like limerence, everywhere, is because I see it so often in faith. I think it is possible to be limerent with Jesus, even though it's normally like in the case of someone you have a crush on or someone you're dating, there is a type of unprocessed stress. If you're stressed about something or you have some unresolved trauma from your childhood, where you really need those emotional highs and torturous lows. You need to occasionally be tortured emotionally about loss. And then you occasionally need to feel the euphoria of that loss being resolved. And I bet that just hit pretty hard for a few people. Now, the people who do not have unresolved childhood trauma are like, this podcast sucks, I'm going to move on. Like, let's see what Ed Milet is talking about that. But man, for the people that it just hit for, I think that one probably went pretty deep. There is a type of unresolved stress that will lead to this. And I have had this, and even as unemotional as I have been generally about my spiritual life, when I first converted, I did have kind of a limerent relationship to faith, where I would be flooded with the serotonin of like, I feel God in my soul. He is here with me. He has a plan for my life, and he is cradling me in his godly heavenly hand. This is amazing. And then 2 weeks later, it would be like, God has abandoned me. There is nothing. Does he even exist? Oh my God, what if God doesn't exist? I have a blog about this. Like, it was a lot of tortured drama. And what I have since learned is that is a way that some people work out unresolved stress or past trauma. So it could be something like your life is stressful right now. Maybe there's something going on with your finances that like you just cannot think about. And so your subconscious gets you worked up into limerence. And if you're married to someone who will brook zero drama, like my husband, I've probably tried to do limerent stuff with my husband, and he's just like, I'm going to get in my Walmart inflatable hot tub until you relax. Like, he's just like a brick wall. Like, it won't work. And so I think, I've been married 20 years to someone who you just can't be limerent with, he's just like, I'm not going to do it. I would put that on my faith life. And for a lot of us, that is how we exercise. And I don't mean exercise like getting your heart rate up. I mean like exorcise with an O, like exorcising demons. That is how we exercise stuck emotions. And so maybe if, again, you're trying not to think about your finances, or maybe in your past you have some abandonment or rejection issues, you're going through that cycle with God. So it's like you feel that devastation that might connect to something in your past of abandonment, like God is, so in this case, God is a proxy for whatever happened to you back in the day. God has abandoned me. Like he's not answering any prayers. I don't feel him at all. I don't feel him in my heart. He's not talking to my heart. He's, blah, blah, blah. But then it gets resolved. Then you have this high, and you feel like God is with you. And that's a known thing that your body keeps cycling through, pinging back and forth between the pain and the resolution, because of something that happened that you never fully processed. And again, I'm only talking to like 10% of listeners here. I've probably lost a lot of people with this one, but that 10% needs to hear it. That if you have a lot of tortured drama in your facelift, let's go back to that. If you have a lot of tortured drama in your faith life, it might be limerence. And you should look up limerence and see if maybe you are projecting some of those things onto your life of faith. And if it's not, so let's say it's not limerence. You are in kind of a dark night of the soul, and it doesn't seem to be, it doesn't seem to be that, then I would just say, let go of all fear. Know that it's all true. It's all true. And just relax. And maybe, you know what it is? Maybe let God speak to you in a different way. Different people receive God through different languages. So we all know some people they're very, I swear they get actual verbal commands from God. They're hearing the Lord telling them things. And I believe that only half of them are crackpots. Like some of them are true mystics. I know people like that. Like they have a one-to-one connection with God. I listen to everything they say. And then there are people who, let's take a mathematician type person who they're just kind of logical, and they see God in just the way the universe was created. And they don't really have like long conversations with God because they can't receive him in that way, but they have a great intimacy with him through the math and the physics and the astronomy and the science. Like, for example, look up Brother Guy Consolmagno. He is the Vatican astronomer. He went to MIT studying astrophysics. He is a major scientist. Like, he won the Carl Sagan Prize for Astronomy. Carl Sagan, famous atheist. Brother Guy Consolmagno, a Jesuit brother, won the Carl Sagan Award for astronomy. And he has some great talks. You should look up some of his talks, but he has great talks about how we see God in science and nature. And yeah, that is how some people connect with him. And just because we live in this culture where like evangelical preachers are dropping down from stadium ceilings for the Christmas pageant with like rockets coming out of their shoes and confetti, and that kind of gets in your head that that's what faith is supposed to be about. Look, that is one way to experience God, to have music and emotion and, oh my gosh, Holy Spirit, I feel you, and you're crying and all that. Sure, that is a way to experience God. That's a language that you and God can share. But not everybody speaks that language. And so Brother Guy Consolmagno and the mathematician and the physicist, they're going to experience God a different way. And frankly, usually the way I experience God is I'm moving forward in my life, and I seek direction in small things like, okay, I'm going to this party. It's going to be super awkward. I'd like to Kate Middleton this and just disappear, but I got to go. So, Lord, inspire me who to talk to. And then I do sort of something just feels right. There's this one person, everything lines up for me to talk to this person. It ends up being a really providential conversation. Like I say something they needed to hear or vice versa. And it's like, well, yeah, I saw God there. Did I feel a great rush of emotion? No. Did I hear God's voice speaking to me? No. Was I crying about the work of the Holy Spirit? No. But I see him. I see his hand guiding me. In my little on the spectrum brain, I think in systems and I think in patterns. And I see God guiding my system. And that's honestly how I connect with him. It's not an emotional thing. I see God influencing my system. And frankly, that is how I connect with him. And it's not long conversations, and it's not emotional. And I think some of you guys, you have a language that you have historically used to communicate with God. So let's say you were one of those people when you were a teenager. Oh man, you were talking to God and you were feeling the Holy Spirit and he was speaking to your heart and all of that. And then now let's say you're a mom of 3 little kids and it's not working. Like she's sending your calls to voicemail. It's not working. Well, I think what might be going on is you might be exhausted from having a bunch of little kids. I think maybe your emotional receptors are a little worn down because you have these little kids. And because of that, you might need to switch your language a little bit and maybe, again, see God working through, it's a really tough day. You've got to take the kids to the store and you're just dreading it because they're all overtired and everyone feels terrible, but you have to run this errand and you're just like, oh my God, help me, like help this not suck so much. And then the person behind you ends up paying for your groceries or just something like that. You see God's hand at work in some way. Maybe that's your new language. And so I think what some of you consider a dark night of the soul is really just your language that you use to give and receive love with God has switched, and you're resisting that. You just don't realize that you need to use a different language, so to speak, to talk to God. And again, if you didn't have kids in one era and now you do, or things have gotten crazier with family, or things have gotten crazier with kids, you better believe your language is going to switch. You're going to need to talk to God in a different language, probably. And so you think you're in a dark night of the soul, but I think you just need to switch language. Try looking at ways that other people, non-American megachurch people, have connected with God, and see how physicists have connected with God. See how painters and mathematicians and people of all different backgrounds have connected with him. And I think you might be able to find a new language. And you know what? It might even be richer than the first one. You might discover this whole new way to connect with God that's actually a better fit for you than when you were 16 and just had a whole different brain and life. Like, there actually might be something really cool on the other side of this. It might be less emotional. It might involve less tears and waving your hands in the air as you listen to, who sings Oceans?
Oh, that's a great question. But I don't know.
Yeah, it's I almost said Paramore.
Seafret?
No.
That's a different Oceans.
Hillsong. That's what it is.
Oh.
So look, your new language might involve communicating with God in a different way. And especially if you are going from emotional to non-emotional in this culture we live in that says that you're, flying past or dropping confetti and everyone's crying, like that's the way to connect with God. That can be hard because it can feel like you're going from something good to something bad. But that's not how Christians have historically seen it. And switching from an emotional experience of God to more seeing God in systems, in how he's moving in your life, even if you're not, crying to Hillsong, you might find that actually leads you to a richer experience of faith if you will just stop resisting it and embrace the new language that's right for you right now. Now, wait, Caitlin. Caitlin was about to hit the exit music.
I was prepared.
And I just realized I'm contractually obliged. I need to post a main feed clip about my Seattle show. And I forgot to do that. So can everyone bear with me? I need to say something that we can clip for social media before you hit the exit music. Okay, so I kind of touched on this earlier. To be honest, guys, you can stop this podcast. So just join the Patreon. I'm only saying this to clip this for Seattle. Okay. I am headed to Seattle this Friday, March 22nd. I have 2 shows. The reason I like going out there is because I am an aspiring pale vampire, and that is the kind of weather that I like. I could live in Seattle, man. Like, I want it to be rainy. I want it to be cold. I want there to be no reason to be out of doors whatsoever. I can't wait. This show is going to be incredible, and I can't wait to see people in Seattle this Friday. Now you can hit the exit music. If anyone is still listening here at the end, I'm impressed. You're a real fan. You're a real one. You're a true one. Well, so it's nice to be, we covered God exists. Here's how to have a relationship with him. And here's where Kate Middleton is. How is this podcast free? We don't know. We will be back with you next week here on the Jen Fulwiler Show.